Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Summit of the Americas, held this last weekend in Trinidad and Tobago, constituted an embarrassment for this hemisphere. Fidel Castro in Cuba is a psychopath and a serial killer, but he has long had a plan. His long-term goal has been to have the United States apologize to him and for the United States to bankroll his repressive totalitarian apparatus before he dies. He wants the United States to apologize for having kept the U.S. market and its millions of tourists and billions of dollars in financing from him, and for having denied him full diplomatic relations for decades. In order to achieve his goal, Fidel Castro has been recruiting advocates for years. The ideological and psychological fascination and dependency that Hugo Chavez has on Fidel Castro has allowed Castro to utilize Chavez's billions of petrodollars to purchase many important advocates. It is part of the public record that a suitcase of Chavez cash heading to Mrs. Kirchner in Argentina was accidentally intercepted by authorities before reaching its intended destination. Castro has purchased advocates through the years via the always present threat of blackmail after trips to totalitarian Cuba, where the regime tapes visitors in compromising situations, as confirmed by Interior Ministry defector Roberto Hernandez del Llano and Cuban counterintelligence defector Major Roberto Ortega. Castro also serves as a banker for illicit money possessed by those who seek to avoid detection by the anti-laundering mechanisms set up by the international community. It matters not if the money's source is political corruption or narco-trafficking. Hugo Chavez's absolute dependency on Fidel Castro for every major decision, even for his phrases and gestures in international forums, is unprecedented. While the Soviet Union used to send Castro economic aid and also orders and instructions, Chavez sends Castro billions of dollars and receives orders from him. What the world witnessed at this last weekend's Summit of the Americas was a culmination of years of preparation in the purchase and cultivation of advocates by Fidel Castro. The goal of the advocates? Mass American tourism with its billions of dollars a year in U.S. trade financing, so that the U.S. taxpayer ultimately bails out and bankrolls Fidel Castro. Castro's advocates know very well that Article 3 of the Charter of the Organization of American States requires the existence of representative democracy in all the countries of our hemisphere, and that the Inter-American Democratic Charter of 2001 even spells out the collective steps to be taken when an American republic's democracy is usurped. They know that Cuba under Castro is the only country in our hemisphere where free elections have not been held in over 50 years and where dungeons are full of nonviolent political prisoners. They know that under Castro, Cuba is a personal island estate, a ranch, a personal landholding or homestead, a totalitarian fiefdom owned by one man, with a brother who enjoys the title of head of state and carefully carries out his brother's orders. Any goods the people on the island purchase must be purchased in the island fiefdom's company stores and with worthless vouchers called convertible pesos sold by the regime. Castro takes 30% of all hard currency off the top at the time island residents purchase the vouchers, and all hard currencies must be spent with purchased vouchers in his company stores. The inducement for child prostitution on the island fiefdom is unparalleled in the world, because no matter how hard island residents work, only foreign hard currency allows them to purchase the vouchers, the convertible pesos, for use in the stores that sell everything, from food to clothes to soap to toothpaste. Equally, only foreign hard currency allows residents to purchase medicines. The shelves in the old stores and pharmacies where residents used to be able to purchase Soviet bloc supplies with their ration cards are simply empty, since there is no money to be made there by the dictator. The Castro advocates at the weekend summit knew all this, like when Mrs. Kirchner called for the U.S. to make amends with our sister republic, Cuba, or when Mr. Ortega condemned the U.S. for organizing the Bay of Pigs invasion in 1961. Somehow they knew that President Obama would refer to Castro's totalitarian fiefdom as Cuba. Somehow they knew that President Obama would not respond to Mr. Ortega that at the Bay of Pigs, Cubans bravely fought to spare their country half a century of totalitarian oppression. President Obama said, "I'm grateful President Ortega did not blame me for things that happened when I was 3 months old." 30 seconds. Unanimous consent. Somehow they knew President Obama would not make clear that as per U.S. law, the U.S. embargo will go away when all of Castro's political prisoners are freed and when there is freedom of expression and multi-party elections scheduled in Cuba. Of course they knew. President Obama had just unilaterally granted the fiefdom's owner hundreds of millions of dollars a year in exchange for nothing.